This is nuts. I mean, grabbing people off the street and saying, you know, you're not here legally. And in many cases, actually, grabbing people in courtrooms where they have been here legally with permission as their asylum claims are being processed, and dismissing those court actions and then shipping them off to Somalia, to South Sudan, to Djibouti. I mean, this is nuts. And this, I mean, I'm not talking about people from those places. In fact, most of the people who were shipped to Africa were actually from Indonesia. So what's the deal? Well, you know, the Trump administration is like, hey, if you're not a white person, you're going to go outside this country. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. They are not deporting white people, but they are aggressively deporting brown and black people and Asian people. And, you know, the Trump administration back in May put 8 people on a flight that was supposed to go to South Sudan. I've been to South Sudan. I was there on the border with Darfur. We were feeding people and bringing medicine and other relief supplies. And it's a hellhole. I mean, it's just, you know, it's like miles and miles of scrub desert with the occasional deep-rooted tree and you know, very little food. They do have oil, which is, you know, kind of prompted the war between South Sudan and Sudan, the separation of South Sudan. I was there at the time of the election when Salva Kiir became the president. I spent an afternoon with Salva Kiir, in fact, who is now the president of South Sudan, in Juba. And, you know, Juba is their capital city, and it's the main street is maybe 12 blocks long, and it's a dirt road. I mean, this is where we're deporting people to. But the Supreme Court yesterday said, that's fine with us. And they didn't even hear arguments. They didn't make a formal ruling. They simply said, yeah, this is the so-called shadow docket, where basically this is where they do their political dirty work without the actual formal process of evaluating things. This is just wrong. Sonia Sotomayor, the you know, one of the 3 Democratic appointees on the court, she said this ruling exposes thousands to the risk of torture or death. She was joined by Justices Elena Kagan and Ketanji Brown Jackson, writing, this is the opinion, the dissent written by Sotomayor, but joined by the other 2. Quote, the government has made clear in word and deed that it feels itself unconstrained by law, free to deport anyone, anywhere, without notice or an opportunity to be heard. Apparently, the court finds the idea that thousands will suffer violence in far-flung locales more palatable than the remote possibility that a district court exceeded its remedial powers when it ordered the government to provide notice and process to which the plaintiffs are constitutionally and statutorily entitled. That use of discretion is as incomprehensible as it is inexcusable. Wow. Here you've got 3 members of the U.S. Supreme Court saying that what the other 6 members are doing is incomprehensible and inexcusable. Now, this, I think we're in the final 2 weeks of the Supreme Court's term, might be the final week. I'm pretty sure it's 2 weeks, but, you know, look it up, fact check me on that. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. But what we do know is that there are some substantial decisions that have been argued before the court, but the decisions have not been published yet. And so they're not, you know, we don't have formal decisions yet. And the first one is this executive order that Donald Trump signed limiting birthright citizenship. Birthright citizenship, of course, comes out of the 14th Amendment. It was passed after the Civil War to ensure that all the black people who had been brought here from Africa had full U.S. citizenship because they had been born here by and large. And so basically, you know what the 14th Amendment says, if you're born in the United States, you're a citizen. And Republicans have been bent out of shape about this ever since 1965, when we changed our immigration laws to allow people from black and brown people to from 1924, I believe it was 24, might have been 23, until 1964 or 65, the law in the United States was that people could only immigrate into the United States if the racial balance of the United States was maintained by that immigration. So in other words, if we were 75% white, 75% of the people who we approved for citizenship had to be white. It was just that simple. That got blown up during Lyndon Johnson's presidency. I believe it was 65, might have been 64, with a new piece of legislation, new immigration legislation that said that basically we're eliminating the racial quotas. And now we've got a different system. And what happened was an awful lot of immigrants coming into this country were coming from black and brown countries and Asian countries. And that has just got the Christian white straight male supremacists hysterical. And of course their avatar is Donald Trump and Stephen Miller and J.D. Vance. So Trump signs this thing limiting birthright citizenship, or basically ending birthright citizenship, this executive order. And the Supreme Court isn't, in all probability, isn't going to just decide on whether birthright citizenship is or is not in the Constitution and is or is not the law of the land. The larger issue here, or what may become the larger issue here, we'll have to wait and see, is whether Donald Trump can, or whether the president, any president, can issue an executive order that alters our understanding of, or even the plain meaning of the Constitution of the United States. And if 5 or more of the right-wingers on the Supreme Court go along with Trump on this, then the Supreme Court will have established that the president can be a dictator. So this has much higher stakes than just, oh, gee, how many people are we going to let into the country and who, and all that kind of, and if you're born here, are you really a citizen? They're also looking at whether a school district in suburban Washington, D.C. is violating the religious rights of right-wing parents by having a teacher read a book to students. It's called Prince and Knight, and it tells the story of a Prince Charming who does not want to marry any of the princesses, and then teams up with a knight, these two men, and they go off and slay a dragon. And while they're slaying the dragon, they fall in love. And they come back and they get married, and this quote fills the queen and king with joy, the parents of the prince, according to the school summary. And the parents of the children in this school are saying, wait a minute, we don't want our kids to be reading a book or having a book read to them in which two men fall in love. So the Supreme Court will be deciding that. Is this a violation of their religious beliefs? Then there's also this Universal Service Fund, which Congress created in 1996 to help pay for broadband and low-cost telephone service in low-income neighborhoods and rural areas. Now, this is going to be a real conundrum for Republicans because it helps out white people in rural areas, but it also helps out black people in cities. And, they're generally speaking, historically, what we've seen is that white people are willing to throw their own poor people under the bus if that means that they can prevent black people from getting services. The classic example of that is the 20% hole in Medicare that's only there to prevent black people from accessing hospitals. But there's other examples as well. There's also a question, there's a group of white voters in Louisiana want to do away with a black congressional district, saying that it violates the 14th Amendment. That would jeopardize the state's second black and Democratic-leaning congressional district. And they're also going to decide a fight that erupted in 2018 when South Carolina's Governor Henry McMaster yanked Medicaid funding from 2 Planned Parenthood clinics. And, again, this is not just about abortion. It's about the power of the governors and how Medicaid can be, overseen. And, there's just a whole bunch of stuff here.